I want to lower that stat. My goal
Yes.
is to squash that stat, and not squash it, but lower that number, because that is crazy. And I appreciate the those words, and we're always happy to help. But I would also add, why the heck do you even want a business? Hating a job is not a good reason necessarily for owning, to be a business owner. We'll just call it
Yeah.
business ownership. But you should educate yourself and understand, like, it is absolutely amazing. I became a soccer coach and I have not missed a soccer game. And that started at age 4. My son's just is actually going to be 18 in November.
It's
So
amazing, right?
so that's success. People say,
Yeah.
well, what success is measured? Well,
Yeah.
it's hard to measure. Everything isn't numbers, right? There's quality of life and things like that. So everyone's why and everyone's reason is it's not just about money. It's flexibility, as you mentioned, being able to travel and do the things you want and not have to be at your desk and report to a boss. So really figuring it out. And then I'm going to repeat myself, know your numbers. You need money to invest in any business. So make sure that you have your finances. So if you decide to leave the job that either you like or dislike, who's paying your rent, your mortgage, your student loans, and buying food, have that buffer, have those savings aside. But you owe it to yourself to, if you don't want to speak with me, speak with another franchise owner,
Yeah,
talk
just
to them.
exactly. Get knowledge. I totally agree with that. And I think that's a good thing on numbers to mention too, is like, you don't have to have it all figured out right now.
Right.
First interested, like, we'll help you with funding. You probably have funding recommendations. There are many ways to fund a business, right? So misnomer, you don't have to have all the cash on hand, although some people do, right? But there are funding options for well-qualified candidates. So don't let, again, that be a deterrent. Oh, I don't know how I'll fund it, so I'm not going to get started, right? If you think that you have the means to make this happen, people like Giuseppe can help you figure this out, right? What are the different pieces I need? How does this work? How long does it take? Do I still work while I'm starting it?
Right.
The answer is yes, right? Generally, it takes us 12 months. So people are keeping their job throughout construction and site selection, and some even beyond.
Yeah,
So
right. Good point.
every brand is different and what's expected of the owner, the capital needed. So these are all things that you can talk through and figuring out, hey, would this be good for me and my family?
Yeah, lay it all out. And I could tell you from experience, I had someone say to me, well, I only have 10,000. No, I forget what the number was. It was 30 or 40,000 in savings. And then we dug a little bit deeper, and they had money in retirement from an old job. And they're like, well, I didn't, you can't use retirement to purchase a franchise. And I said, actually, you can. There's an actual process. So sometimes don't, I always say, don't assume, have the conversation and figure out, because just because you have access doesn't mean you're comfortable with it or if it's a good fit, but it's good to at least have those options so you can decide with whoever is going to be involved in that business. And I jokingly say that the best piece of advice I can give to anyone listening is let everyone know why you're doing this. Let the family know. Don't buy if you're married, don't buy a franchise, and don't, not tell the spouse until after the fact. Have all parties engage. If you have kids, our kids were, we found out my wife was pregnant 3 days after buying my first franchise. So
of course, right?
That was our motivation. But if you have little kids, or just in general, anyone living in the house, let them know this is what we're doing. It's going to be a busy time and maybe a lean time that first year in getting the business up and running. But not to cause any kind of friction. Let everyone know why you're doing this, and maybe incorporate them, maybe involve them into the business in a role. We had someone right now looking at a brand, and the kids want to get involved in some capacity, whether it be marketing or making the frozen yogurt or the donuts, because we're looking at a few different concepts. So you can get them involved, see what that looks like, and paint a couple different pictures, because they may not want to be involved, but it's good to at least present it in that way. It's definitely interesting, and those stats we'll get the next time we speak. We're going to get those stats lowered.
Lower. Yeah. I love what you just said. And I would reiterate that we do that. First time I talk to every candidate and interested in learning more about taste buds, the executive call, one of the first questions I ask them is, what does your family feel about this? Right. Hopefully we have a lot of husband and wife teams. So normally it's both of them on, which I love. If it's not both of them on, I'm like, what does everyone else think? This is not a one person decision. It takes a family, it takes a village. And it's a really good spot check, right? What are the people closest to you, whether they are friends or family? How do they feel about this for you? Can they see you doing this? Do they have support? Do they want to be involved? We have, people have had babies while owning Taste Buds Kitchens. They have high schoolers. They have kids in college. We have grandparents, right? So we have the whole gamut. And their families are largely involved, whether their kids are, learning the hustle, doing dishes in the back, or their little kids are coming to camp and they're having their birthdays at Taste Buds, or it's like their grandkids and their grown kids are working with them. So specifically at Taste Buds Kitchen, but in general, it's definitely, some people see it as legacy business. Some people just really want to get their kids involved, show them the value of hard work, show them that you can do something different, you can follow your dreams. So yeah, I love the family aspect of franchising. It's changed my life, really. I mean, my husband and I, we moved to Maryland. We work harder than you can imagine, but it doesn't feel like work to me. I love it. I really do enjoy it. I like what we're building and feel really proud of the company we built. We have 11 people at HQ, which is a dream. So we're really trying to grow ahead of the demand and make sure we have the infrastructure to sustain. And that's part of building a good culture and, a good organization for us. But my sister has worked with us in the past. Like my dad helped drive up cabinets when we were first opening the kitchen. It is a family business.
Right.
My great grandmother bought our first oven.
Oh, wow.
She really wrote me a check, and Anna, we still have it. But yeah, it's very, very cool part of life if your family can be involved in what you're doing each and every day.
I like to hear that because we're not on those calls, so it's good. It's good to know that these questions are being brought up because they're important. Sometimes we kind of glance over. Yeah, everyone's fine with it, but it's good to have those.
Yeah, I'm like, no. I need to rewind to that. Who was fine with this? The key players, right? Especially if you're husband, wife, or partner, any kind of team, are both players on the same page about this.
Agree.
Right?
100%.
Very cool.
Yep. You got to be not. Yeah, they're on the same page. No,
I got to see this. I got to hear it from their voice that they're good with this.
Prove it. I don't want just an email. I want to see the person. I want to
100%.
see their face. I want to. Because sometimes concerns will come up or questions will come up, and you want to make sure everyone is going to be, okay with it. Everyone's comfortable with it, and I think that goes a long way. So that's I preach that all the time. I don't know. I hope everyone follows that advice, but I think that's crucial in my opinion. What would you say? So there's a lot of listeners out there. What's the best piece of advice? And maybe it's something we already talked about that you have received. That you'd like to share, because that's a big part of this too, is kind of, we talked about where to start. We talked about making sure everyone's on board, but, and again, it could be reiterated, but what is the best piece of business advice that you have received throughout your entire career?
Oh, that's a great question. I've had so many mentors and so many people generously lend their skills and time and efforts. I don't know if it's business advice as much as role models, which I've then tried to emulate, would be like in business. My grandfather and my dad have been great role models in how this works. Both had corporate jobs. They would do side businesses on top of it, never franchising, but, always in the hustle, always trying to figure it out. And I think for my grandfather, he was good with the numbers. He would do math in his head, right? We would just do problems to each other all the time. But he was a fun leader, and he was someone that people liked to be with, and he made the work fun. He was laughing and part of it and serious at the same time. But I feel like that's really what I've tried to take from seeing how he did it. And he just passed away in March. It was a very influential figure in my life for a long time. And my dad is all about process and numbers and like making sure that this works and, being the spot check. And I think both of those things, while not advice, just learning from those, people in my family is very important to me, has really been helpful. And that's what I try to do. I mean, my advice I give to all of our franchisees is to be gritty, be scrappy.
Love it.
Do what it's going to take to make this work, right? The model's here, but it has to be run. And I think grittiness and scrappiness is just that tenacity and the hard work to carry it through and to do what it is you set out to do. It's not going to be easy, right? Do not expect franchising or anything to write a check and pay for it and have things fall into line. That is just not life. But I see no as like a soon to be yes. I keep asking until it does become a yes. And having that, I think, grit and scrappiness in anything you do is important.
You've seen the clips. Now get the full uncut conversation. Watch the full episode to get every single insight from Giuseppe Grammatico and Jesse Walter Brailsford's powerful discussion.